Okay, here we go. Welcome everybody back to the Perakee podcast. Today I have with me Amy Belair of Third Eye Awakening podcast, and she also has a great group on Facebook called Soul Space, where all the freaks and weirdos and geeks can connect. All the Pleiadians and star seeds and psychics and ghost hunters or whatever your thing is. She's got a great space there for people to connect and get to know each other and share information. And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so excited that you started this podcast, because the last time we talked, it was a plan, and now it exists as a thing.
We manifested it. Yeah, for those who don't know, Amy, I heard Amy on one of my favorite podcasts, Tinfoil Hat. I think it was last December you were on.
Yeah.
And she was explaining who she is and what she does, and everything was just like bing, bing, bing. Like it just, I was like, I relate to that. I relate to that. I relate to that. And at the end of the show, she says, I never talk to any guys on my podcast. And I was like, what the, I should talk to her. I should talk to her. Like something inside me was just like, I should talk to her. I'm like, what the hell? I'll do it. So I went on her podcast, and it's all snowballed, and it just seems like everything's falling into place, synchronicity and things like this is who I am, and what I'm meant to do is talk with all these wonderful people with great ideas and philosophies and beliefs. And yeah, I owe it all to you. You're the one to help me get going.
Well, I think you were on this path already. It was just it was the catalyst.
Yeah, it helped push me over the edge and grow a set of balls and get to it. Well, was you, and then Todd heard me. The Godcast, Todd Armstrong, heard me on yours, and he got a hold of me right the next day, and then boom, I was talking to him, and then starting my own, and this is number 6 for me already.
I love it. I love all these connections being made.
Yeah, no, it's so weird, and you should see what I got coming up. I've been lazy this summer, because I just am an outdoors person. I'm really going to hit the podcasting hard this fall and winter. But just all the people in my life is just like, wow. I know so many people that are going to be awesome to talk to.
That's exciting.
I have a huge list.
So you have some people lined up?
Oh, tons. I got like a list of like 20. These are all just people that are like in my life.
I know, we're all coming out of the woodwork now. That's the best part.
Yeah, it's really cool. Even one of my best friend's little brothers, I just found out he's this like huge Sasquatch hunter, and he's all famous on TikTok, and I had no idea. I'm like, see, the weirdos just keep coming out. I know them all.
Right.
And you got a beautiful new baby there.
I do. William he'll be 11 weeks old on Thursday. So he's
wonderful.
He's still pretty fresh and new, but he's figuring it out.
Got the new baby smells too. Hello, William. So, Amy, did you want to explain your story and your abilities and lots of that? And be sure to explain what the Akashic Records are, because I'm sure a lot of my listeners have no idea what that is.
Okay, sure. So I feel like at this point now, looking back, it's easier for me to acknowledge that I was probably an experiencer for my whole life, but it was really, really low key. I didn't see, like, I wasn't haunted by ghosts or, anybody appearing at the foot of my bed, nothing like that. Like, I didn't have the experiences that you did. I didn't see any like mystical white horse in my childhood walk to school or whatever it was. It was more just like, I just had a sense of who I was and what my mission was. And I knew that there was a reason that I was born at this time. And I kind of understood things from a higher perspective, I would say, all my life. But I've also had a lot of, we all have so much programming, right? That tells us that we're not good enough, causes us to doubt ourselves and think that we're crazy and say it's just our imagination and sweep it under the rug. And so that's what the majority of my life was spent, like, sort of kind of on one hand knowing that I had a unique perspective and that I was tapped into something else, but really undermining my own abilities and therefore never letting them take off because I was always chopping them down every single time it happened. So, and I believe that there's a reason that was my path. I believe it's so that I can help others go who are going through the same process of deconditioning and busting through the programming. But what really sort of launched me past that, the thing that I needed, I guess, in my life to get through it, was the death of my second born son. So he was a surprise pregnancy, but very, very, very wanted by me and by my partner. But like, I had been wanting, always wanted 7 kids. I ended up with 4, which is pretty good. I'll take it. But like, I always wanted more kids. And it was a long, like 11 years in between the birth of my first son and my second pregnancy. So he was very, very wanted by me. And I just went through, like, I got in this little fender bender when I was about, like, just at the end of my first trimester. And then, you know, it ended up causing some bleeding about 10 days later. And then what was it? I guess it was about, I don't know if it was like a month after that. I can't remember the timeline right now, but basically when I was 20 weeks pregnant exactly, so it must have been 6 weeks later, my water broke. And if anybody knows anything about pregnancy, they know that like it's not supposed to break at that point. They're not even close to fully cooked. So it was a really bad prognosis. But he stuck around. I was able to stay pregnant with him for another 6 weeks, and I really had to learn how to navigate uncertainty and stay in the moment and stay connected to love, and you know, just not like release any illusion that I had any control over any of this. Which was it was a big lesson. And eventually he was born about 3 months premature, and he was so strong and really powerful, and it looked really good for the first 11 days. Like, everybody was so optimistic, so impressed. He didn't even need to be on any supplemental medications. He was just on like a nutrition supplement and caffeine, which is so funny. My husband was like, he's my son.
Double.
Yeah. and then it just, there's so many things that can happen to a baby who's in the neonatal intensive care unit. And one of the things happened to him, and he ended up developing a hole in his intestines, for reasons I won't go into. It's just one of those things that can happen. And he had to have emergency abdominal surgery. He survived it, and he, you know, even he was kind of hanging in limbo for about 3 days, and they thought on the 3rd day his blood pressure finally normalized, and they thought, okay, we're on the ups again. And then as part of the routine, I don't know, I guess like surveillance of how he was doing and his health, they had a head ultrasound done on him just to make sure his brain was still fine. And they saw that he was having really big brain bleeds while they were doing the ultrasound. So when his blood pressure normalized, it blew through all the delicate little capillaries in his brain, and it was in his brain stem. So it would have affected every part of his motor, his cognition, everything. And they told us this really hard news and let us know that what it meant for him was, they didn't know, but there's a very, very high likelihood that he would be like completely paralyzed, not able to do anything, not even able to think properly, and just be trapped in a body that didn't work and a brain that didn't work for a whole lifetime.
Yeah.
And when they let us know that, we knew that we had to let him go. They strongly advised it, but we knew that, you know, it wasn't a mistake. It was the right choice. It was absolutely the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But I knew that that was the greatest gift I could give him, was to let him go and be free. And so we made that choice. And I feel very, very lucky on so many levels that, for example, I got to be present with him at the time of his passing. Like there's so many things that I feel like were huge gifts to me. And also in the whole process, because it was such a long period of his, the pregnancy not going well, and then him being born prematurely and everything, like I had to learn to connect to his energy and try and speak to him and be with him as much as possible. So after he died, I could feel his ongoing presence, like immediately within a couple hours. Like I think there's probably a 3 or 4 hour window where I didn't get any messages from him, and I really wasn't looking for them. He was probably there, but I was in way too much grief and distress to receive them. And then, if anybody's ever experienced grief, that there's a point where you just you can't, like, you kind of go numb, like you can't be in that state perpetually all the time. So I think he was able to sneak in one of those windows when I went kind of numb, and I started getting messages from him, and it just filled my heart. And I don't even really know how to put it. Like I already knew, because my grandmother had died some years before, and similarly I had received messages from her, so I already knew that life continues. But it was like, oh my God, and the most precious people to me, who are my children, they aren't even gone when they die. It's just the body that's gone. Consciousness isn't gone, the love isn't gone, the connection isn't gone. And so after that, I was always trying, like after he died, I was always trying to connect with him. And I realized that I couldn't seem to receive messages from him when I was in the throes of grief, which of course I was a lot of the time. I could only receive the messages when I was in those states of, I don't know if you can fully call it numbness. It's just like your body chemistry needs to reset or something. So you get this break from the grief. And that's when I could get messages from him. So I realized there was a correlation between my own emotional state and my mental state, which I equate to like my vibration and my frequency, and being to connect with him. And it made sense that he is at a higher frequency of like freedom and the full vantage point. He's not stuck in a body like I am, subject to the human perspective. He has the complete perspective, so he's at a higher frequency. So if I want to connect with him, I have to go up and reach him. He can't come down to reach me. He can only come so far down. Right. So it gave me the motivation. It was like the carrot to help me learn to fine tune my own frequency and have more control over that. And so I was getting messages from him, and that was really wonderful. And that was part of my journey. But I was also like absolutely plagued by the question of, why did this happen? Why did I lose my son? Why? And I was, as I think most humans do, I was horribly blaming myself and taking like ruthless inventory of everything I'd ever done in this life, imagining what I might have done in other lives. Like, who have I hurt? How have I been an asshole? Like, what did I do to deserve this? And I totally assumed it was me. That I was being punished. But at the same time, I could already see how many gifts he had given me, and he just felt like nothing but a gift to me. And I would do it over and over a million times with him, just to be with him for any length of time. And so I felt like if I feel like he's a gift, then how can he also be a punishment? Right. So I was really, I would say I was agonizing about it the majority of the time, desperate for an answer. And one day on a podcast, I heard the words Akashic Records, and it was like, I don't know, it was like a neon sign with sparkles and magic and being like, ding, 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 this way, this way, this way. Yep. It sounded like magic to me. It sounded like, just, I don't know, like I just had to go down that path. And I was at work, and I excused myself to go to the bathroom and locked myself in a cubicle, and like on my phone I googled Akashic Records, and And I was like, yep, this is it. And I found a program to learn how to read the Akashic records, and I knew I would find the answer there. So the Akashic records, he wanted me to explain it, is they used to draw the analogy of the Akashic records being like the book of your soul. And I think that's like an analog way of understanding it. And I also think that's why a lot of people think that they can't connect with it, because they're expecting to be in a library, like go into meditation and enter a library. And it might come through like that for some people, but for me, it doesn't. It's just a field that contains the imprint, or retains, I guess is a better word, the imprint of everything that has ever happened on all timelines, all probabilities, everything that's ever happened, is happening, will happen. It's the space of no time. So everything is there. And it's like infinite information. And I liken it to the internet, where the internet is a non-physical field of infinite information, and we access it through the portal of our devices. But in this case, I just learned how to become the portal for myself. I just chose to believe that I have a portal and I can open it and connect with this field. And it required a certain amount of suspension of disbelief. And I think the only reason I was able to get there for myself around my own skepticism and self-doubt was because I was so desperate for this damn answer. I just needed to understand why. And so I went into the Akashic records the first time. I did this program, I learned all about it, and then I kind of like skirted around it for a while because I was afraid I wouldn't get an answer. And then finally I was ready to go in. And on the very first try, I didn't bother with any practice questions. I went in with the big guns. I was like, why? Why did this happen?
Yeah.
And I got an answer that was the single most healing revelation, that like it completely relieved all of the sense of tragedy around it. So I still feel grief and sadness at not being able to hold that child in this life. But I know that he is ongoingly present because I've been in communication with him. And also I received the understanding of why it happened. So I no longer feel that it's a tragedy. I don't feel like anything bad happened to me, even though I can feel pain around it. And the answer that I got was that it wasn't my karma, it wasn't my husband's karma, it wasn't anything that any of us had done wrong. It was that my son's soul wanted to have a quick, fast completion of an experience, that like a short incarnation that would allow him to tie up the loose end of an energy that he had started in a different life. And that different life was when he was a soldier, I think it was in World War I. And he just got to a point where he couldn't, it was too horrible. He couldn't deal with it anymore. And he took his own life. And in that moment, like, it wasn't well planned out. It was just like a moment of weakness that he acted on. And he he left behind a lot of people, and he didn't think about them while he was making that decision. And he felt like he basically felt, I don't know how a soul can really feel shame, but he did not want that to be, I don't know, he wanted the chance to do it over again, to not be the one who took himself out of his own suffering. He wanted to let the end come when it was going to come. And so he chose this life where he would have suffering, and he chose Alex and I, so that Alex was the one who had the strength. I don't know if I could have done it without Alex when it came down to the moment. I don't know if I could have let him go out of that body, because it felt like sanctioning the death of my child. Like, it was very, very hard, but Alex had the certainty that this is what we had to do. So he chose Alex, knowing that Alex would do that. And he chose me knowing that I would want him even if he was completely damaged and just a vegetable in a body. I would care for that body my whole life and love him so much. And that answer, that clarity was nothing like what my brain had been telling me. It was nothing like it completely absolved all illusions that I was to blame, or I could have done something to prevent this, or I had done something to deserve this. It set me free from all of that, but it also, like I said, it gave me the perspective that no tragedy happened, that this was something we all agreed to, and he was better for or he got the experience he desired, I guess is the better way to put it. um, and that it became clear to me that he just had so many gifts available to me in exchange for that experience. um, and it just changed everything for me, because I think if I hadn't found the Akashic records, I probably would have stayed in a state of feeling almost like I had lost a limb, like I was missing something for my whole
Sure.
life, and then seeing myself as diminished because of that. And instead, I feel enhanced because of it. I feel like more of my true self, and more, I don't know, it's really hard to put it into words, but it completely transformed everything for me. And as soon as I had that experience, like, also it has a frequency of truth that, it just landed, and everything dispelled right away. And I knew it was true, even if my brain tried to talk me out of it, which of course my brain has, because it's what our brains do. But I just knew that if it wasn't true, it wouldn't have made that much of an effect instantaneously and completely changed my life and my trajectory and my path. So once I had that experience, I also knew that this is my gift to other people, is to learn how to do this and do this with other people and for other people, and help them find answers to things that they needed answers for. So that's how I got to be here. And then it's just taken off in a whole other direction of its own from there too, helping
Yeah,
people
oh, for sure.
to connect with their psychic abilities and remember who they are, and remember those truths about themselves.
Yeah. So do you think like that grief or that, because like the way I like lots of the analogies and stuff you make, like the spiritual world being the internet, and then I see it that way too, and us being almost like cell phones, and it's just kind of like it turned on your Wi-Fi. That experience
Yeah.
opened you up and turned on their Wi-Fi, so it's like you transmutated that energy, right? Because it's like energy or the force, like in Star Trek, it's not good or it's not bad. You're just going through life and it's coming at you, and it's your interpretation or the way you're gonna to deal with those energies coming at you.
Yeah.
You can either let them drag you right down or bring you up, or yeah, some people I notice how with a lot of people that are high energy and I think spiritually connected, or turn to drugs and alcohol and things like that. I know it's the thing I've struggled with in my life, is just numbing yourself out, and that can be a really bad thing. But I mean, you could do that on things that's not even drugs and alcohol. I mean, TV and these
Oh,
phones and stuff like that. Yeah, most people are just drifting, sad to say. Like they're just going to work and coming home and turning off and repeat. It's like it's really sad, and it's something I can get hooked into too. I've had enough. I'm done at the end of the day, but I try to push myself harder to make the most every day. That's why I try to tell my kids there's 24 hours in a day. What are you going to do with them, right? Like make the most of every hour. Stay off these damn phones and things. All these, because they're all really having been an addict in my life and overcoming it. I really recognize the
really?
how these things grab you. I'm like, whoa, 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 what am I doing? Like, go outside, do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I agree completely. I think that a lot of it, like, we're, as humans, we are just numbing out. And I think a lot of it, like, so many of us have come upon that behavior rather innocently. Like,
Yeah.
you just like, it's just what you do. You just watch a show when you're done.
Yeah.
You've worked hard all day and you're tired. You don't really want to think about anything, and you turn on a show. But exactly, like there's 24 hours to use in every day, and there is this beautiful world, this beautiful environment. Plus, we're in this crazy simulation realm dream. There's so much to explore that's way more entertaining than the numbing agents. But if we don't, I think that we've all been subjected to trauma from the very
Oh yeah,
start.
for sure.
That's my feeling, is like, and for a lot of us, it's very subtle trauma that you can't pinpoint because it's just the trauma of, for example, think about this: when kids go to school and they learn that they have to ask permission to go to the washroom.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fucking, am I allowed to
A
swear?
natural function. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts to me. And it's their bodily autonomy, or likewise ask permission to get a drink of water or eat something, or, well, now they all have water bottles. When I was a kid, it was, you had to go to the water fountain, you had to ask for permission, and you were encouraged to wait till recess. And that, I feel like that's actually traumatic, but it's so tiny and subtle that most of us wouldn't call it trauma, because it's not this big event, but it nonetheless creates this disconnect from our own truth and our own sovereignty. It just trains us to be to defer to an authority. And aren't we just seeing now the fruits of that? Right? But it trains us to defer to an authority on the most basic things that we should have complete autonomy over.
Yes. Yeah. I've had a natural thing of defying authority my entire life. It's always been a give and take, like with teachers, police, parents. It's just been like inside me. As long as you treat me with respect, I have no problem. I'm easy to get along with. But as soon as that doesn't happen, there's a switch and a furious temper that goes off in my head. And yeah, just all out defiance. And
Yeah.
that's, I don't know. And with trauma, like you say, not knowing it, like I've had a really good family, really good life, but then maybe it comes to your level of sensitivity. Because I've always been super sensitive when I was young, because I've always tried to figure that out when I had some bad drug problems in my early 20s and stuff like that. Like, what the fuck is the matter with me? Why am I like this? I come from a good home and a loving family and this and that. But I mean, you can't base it out of these books and out of these things that are typical for other people, because we're all on an individual path, an individual journey. My extreme sensitivity, who knows? Maybe it's just being in this cage and this thing is what's killing me. You know what I mean? Crushing my soul and this and that, knowing that this is not the way to live, right? This slavery and stuff like that, right? We should be in nature and practicing our gifts and, living in the forest and being wizards, man.
Exactly. I think that is legitimately a trauma to children, especially starseed children.
Yeah.
When you're like full of whimsy, especially if you have a good childhood, right? And and the people that are your caretakers love you, and you're like, oh, like playing in your imagination land, and you're thinking about things like, I wonder if I can make that object move with my thoughts, and you're thinking
I still do that.
of your actual abilities, and then you hear that you have to go to this thing called school, and then they make you go, and then and you see the adults in your life working hard and not using their abilities. Like, I think being in the system is very soul crushing, and it's a trauma in and of itself, honestly.
Yeah, that was 100% me when I was a child. Like back in the 80s, you just left in the morning and you came home for lunch, then you left again until I was out in the forest miles from my house, talking to myself, all by myself, out there all day long, right? And then you come into the school system and programs of indoctrination and this and that, and the brutal soul crushing. My little brother was the same way too. He was a total space cadet, and God bless my mom, they always told him, put him on ADD, put him on this and that, and she was like, no way, never. Just like he's different than all the other kids. He's alive, he's awake, he's imaginative, but You
right?
couldn't hold that little sucker down. When you went to Costco, he would run over and pull the fire alarm. Like, he was an agent of chaos. He was so much fun. He was 10 years younger than me, and you never knew what this little guy was going to do, right? But he's just a free, awesome spirit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, untamable. Yeah, but definitely. I would have to say that's where that I could relate to is good. The things you learn about yourself just talking like this, where my trauma would come from, is just indoctrination. And I could never understand how other people being mean to people. I remember that when I was little. Like, I could feel when people hurt other people. And I'm like, don't you know? Like, I was thinking to myself, don't you know what you're doing to them and stuff like that? Or is it because I was hurting other people hurt me, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
I could never understand the human beings.
no, that's exactly it. Like, I really think that's the case for star seeds. And I always feel like I don't want to create a concept of this othering, like, oh, there's some children and they're star seeds and they're so special.
Yeah.
And then there's these
No.
other regular muggle kids. I know that there are some of us who have already we've had experiences in different, I don't know, however you want to put it, in different realms, in different games, like different environments with different rules. And so coming here and having to adopt the customs here
Yeah.
is hard. It's hard, and you can't put your finger on it, and you kind of forget that when you're born anyway, or like as you start to grow up. You remember when you're born, I think, but then as you start to grow up, you forget it, and you start thinking, well, I guess I must just be human because I'm here with all these humans. But yeah, you see the way that people treat each other, and you're just like, but why? Like, your feelings are hurt and you're angry and you're lashing out. Like, just tell somebody that your feelings are hurt. Like, why? When you're a kid and you're like, I can see the solution, it's not a big
Yeah.
deal. Like, why are we playing it this way? It's I think it's important to be here among the humans at this time.
We should probably give a little context to people in case they're just coming in. Me and Amy are both Pleiadians. I was told when I was 14 by a lady in my mother's hair salon that I was a Pleiadian here to save the world, and she gave me The Bringers of the Dawn. It's a book about being a Pleiadian, and I read it, and it hit a lot of spots with me, and I really identified with it. And how did you come to learn you were a Pleiadian?
Oh, I think I first heard the term starseed around the same time. Like, I was already spiritually awakened, but that was like a next level spiritually awakening for me that whole first year after my son died. Sorry, he's getting fussy. And I just heard the term starseed somewhere, and I started looking into it, and I really resonated with Pleiadian and Arcturian, and I knew that's what. Oh, did you have trouble coordinating your breathing there? Yeah, I knew that's what I just saw it, and I don't think anybody ever told me. I just was like, yeah, that's what it is.
That's me.
Yeah, and I learned another thing that I'd like to say for any listeners is, like, I learned in that whole year that you have to validate your own things. You have to, like, if somebody is like listening and they're like, oh, I wonder if I'm a starseed and I want somebody to tell me, screw that. You don't need anybody to tell you. If you resonate with what we're saying, then you're, like, I'll just say you're a starseed. And if you read up, like, oh, what are the different starseed types, and you read about the Syrian starseeds and you're like, oh, I think I'm a Syrian starseed, then you are. Just let that be enough. Just believe it. We don't have to wait for somebody to tell us. We don't have to walk around in this state of I'm not special enough until somebody finally tells us.
That's the way I'm studying everything, quantum physics and this and that, and this illusionary combined dream world we all live in. It's only the limitations of all the the indoctrination they taught us, what's real, what's not real, this is gravity, all these constructs. It is your illusion. You could make it whatever you want it to be. So yeah, if you want to be Gandalf, freaking be Gandalf, as long as you believe in it 100%. And I've always had signs and synchronicities and people like show up in my life and guide me. And like you said, hearing Akashic record, hearing Book of Enoch, hearing about the 144th, like these are things that, like you said, an alarm goes off, like whoa, and you're like, go research that, and it's led me right to here to this moment. All the studying and stuff I've done from, since 13 or 14 years old, just always been interested in anything out there, but definitely guided. So that's helped me in my illusion or delusion, whatever you want, but whatever works for you, right? Whatever makes you happy. Like I see my kids for a while, some of their friends were into that LARPing, the live action role playing, and it's like, yeah, give her, buddy, whatever. If
Yeah.
you're into the Lord of the Rings or whatever you want to be, I mean, what a fun thing to go do on weekends and stuff, live in an imaginary world. Why not? Because it's just an imaginary world anyways. Everything we see on TV, well, we just had the Canadian election today. It's all a lie and a fraud and a bunch of bullshit anyways. So.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth, that this is all an imaginary world anyway? So
Yeah.
you might as well let it be the imaginary world that you want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that movie with the oh, so good. With they're going through World War II, and the dad and the little boy, and they were Jews, and he was hiding them the whole time, but he
Life
was
is
making it a
beautiful.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he told him he's going to win a tank at the end,
Yeah.
right? So you, especially a child's mind, that power of manifestation and belief, like you really believe in your mom and dad and everything they say, could make probably something like that definitely happen for sure. Was him believing in his dad or them believing in each other and doing that. I firmly believe that's the way it works.
Let me tell you a story to illustrate that, a personal anecdote. Okay, so I have a 3-year-old daughter, and this time last year, her hair was straight. It was kind of like mine, like it's a little bit, I don't know, like very, very minorly wavy, but mostly just frizzy straight. And then around Christmas, she got really into the Peanuts movies and
Oh,
really like the Charlie Brown Christmas and
yeah,
the Great Pumpkin one. And that one character, Frida, who's always like, my naturally curly hair.
yeah.
So she would say, she was 2 at the time, in the bath, she would say, natural curly hair.
Yeah.
And we would brush her hair out. She hated having her hair washed, so I would brush it with the bath water and try to keep it clean that way. And we would say back and forth, naturally curly hair, and we would just brush it and be like, you have such naturally beautiful, naturally curly hair, not thinking anything of it. And she'd say, naturally curly hair. Eventually her hair started to curl, and now she has full-on corkscrew curls.
Yeah.
Nobody on either side of our families has curly hair. I swear to you that we put a spell on her hair without
Sure.
realizing it by repeating this and brushing every day. But I think it was the magic of her childlike belief that made it
For
happen.
sure.
Because she's just hearing naturally curly hair, and my parents are telling me I have beautiful naturally curly hair. So
Yeah.
ergo, I have naturally curly hair, and it's beautiful. And people comment on it wherever we go. That's how curly it is. That's how beautiful it is. So yes, I totally think this is an imaginary world. That's how manifestation works.
For sure.
The biggest obstacle for all of us is that we've been programmed with this bullshit concept that like we have to be responsible and practical and come back down to earth, and like we have to face reality and blah 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 blah, and it's all bullshit. What even is reality?
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever you perceive it to be.
And
And yeah, so it's just like the belief that there's some down to earth responsible way of being, this like realistic way of being. That's our biggest obstacle in manifestation. Otherwise it's literally that easy. You just brush your hair every day and say, beautiful naturally curly hair. And
yeah, well,
it's curly.
I definitely believe in positive affirmation, like your attitude towards life. My grandfather, that was a everyday part of my life, he always, almost on a daily, would write down goals and this and that, and just always the most happy, positive, singing to he had a general story, sings to everybody every day, very charismatic. And he just has, no matter what, like a great attitude towards everything. And he's like 90 now, 89, 90, and you wouldn't put him a day over 60. And like even
Wow.
the doctors say that. And he's beaten prostate cancer 3 times. One time they did an experimental surgery on him, and they ended up giving him tuberculosis because they were putting tuberculosis up there to eat it, and they ripped him and gave him that, and they damn near killed him from that. And he come out on the other side of that, and everybody says, "Are you going to sue him? You're going to sue the hell out of him?" He goes, "No, why would I do that?" He goes, the BC medical system has given me 4 beautiful children and 13 beautiful great grandchildren and or grandchildren and great grandchildren. They've done a wonderful job by me. It was just a little mistake, but anybody else would have sued the living. But he just is happy and good. But with, I think, where people, there's lots of daydreamers, which is, I think it's also like lots of hard work comes with that back to the 24 hours in the day. I think I just sent one to my son the other day. It was The Rock, an inspirational quote by The Rock. Again, you go to work 8 hours a day for the company that you're working for, and then you come home, and most people, you got to work that other 8 hours for yourself, for your own dreams and hopes and this and that, because you only sleep 8. So if you got 8 at work, you got 8 more, maybe 4 before and 4 after to work on yourself and your goals and hopes and dreams. And that's, like I said, what I feel most people are doing is just drifting. Like people have just gotten lazy, right?
And afraid though too. I think people are afraid of afraid of failure, afraid that they don't know how, afraid that they're not good enough, so they don't even start. I think starting is really the hardest part. But my husband, occasionally he'll comment to me that he said to me the other day that he was just looking at my desk where I'm sitting right now and just thinking to himself how far I've come in, I guess it's almost 2 years now, because I started in January 2020 doing
Okay.
just doing this full time. But he's like, "You've done good." And I appreciate that recognition, but I'm also literally all I did was just do it. Not perfect, I didn't even have a business plan. I still don't have a business plan because it doesn't matter. It's just, putting in those hours a day into the direction that I want my life to go, and just being content with that, being able to go to bed every day and be like, well, I put myself into it. And I have kids, so some days were good days of putting a lot into it, and some days were days where I could only get 10 minutes of work done,
Right.
And otherwise I had mothering and house tending to deal with. But it just keeps moving things incrementally forward. Those 10 minutes they still moved things forward. And I think that it's just a lot of people don't start because they think, oh, I don't know how. I still don't know how. I don't know how. It doesn't matter. It's how is not even a thing. It's just, you just show up and you do it every day to the extent that you're able to with what you have.
Yeah, for sure. I've had no clue how to do this. I just started doing it, and away you go. And it's been pretty good. Not many hiccups. I think I haven't put out number 5 yet. My son edited it, and he's like, I think you were drunk on that one. And I was like, well, we were golfing all day. I thought it was fine. And I'm like, whatever. At least I'm being authentic. Like,
that's right.
You weren't too bad, he said. But he goes, you lit a smoke and had a beer during the podcast. And well, yeah, what the hell? I was relaxing.
Right? Why not? There's no rules in podcast land.
No, there's no rules. But as I'm sober now, and I'm trying to do it because I've done it for 6 months before, and 4 months before, and 7. But especially the sensitivities just start going way up and way up and way up. And I don't think I've ever been ready now like I am.
Yeah.
Maybe because my kids are older or this or that, but now I'm ready for that and to deal with that, and to harness and explore that or whatever. I'm super excited about that. Not drinking, quitting smoking, and trying to have a daily routine of health and exercise, spirituality. That's how I have to be because of my rigorous routines, 2 weeks at a time in camp. And then I come home and I'm left to my own devices. I have no schedule, and I have to have one. I have to have get up every day and go for a run and do yoga and hike and then eat and then practice guitar and then maybe study for a podcast or like otherwise I'm
Yeah.
no good. Otherwise I'll get bored and just go to the beer store, right?
Yeah, that's how we work, I think. But I have a question for you.
Yep.
Oh, little lad. So you said that your sensitivities are increasing. Do you feel like they're just increasing by default? Like they just happen to be increasing in a way?
Well, at the same time as my intention, because I know I have these abilities and I want to explore them. So I don't know if it's both at the same time, but it feels like the dial is being turned up.
Yeah.
Because most of my abilities or whatever is in the dream world, and it's getting absolutely intense and crazy. And I just recently got a CPAP breathing machine. So I'm really bad snorer, and they told me yeah, 25% of the night I was at 80% blood oxygen, 25% I was at 60 blood oxygen. They're like, you're almost dying. And I'm like, oh man. I said that, I joked with them. I said, that's probably why I have such prophetic dreams, because I'm almost at the other side already. And he's like, yeah, who knows? And I was scared it would take that away, breathing properly all night.
Right.
But it hasn't. It hasn't, not even a bit. I still have just, as soon as I don't believe it all. It's like what they say, it's only that last few minutes before you wake up or the REM, because it's from when as soon as I close my eyes, sometimes they start before my eyes even close, and we have the news on, the evening news or whatever's on TV. Sometimes the movie starts then. And
Wow.
I go to sleep and I can get up and go to the washroom and go right back into it. But lately it's been crazy battles between good and evil and alien invasion all the time.
Oh yeah. What kind of
Yeah,
alien?
all the time. Just ships. They're not showing, they're just craft coming down and this and that. And it's like all over the news and everybody's freaking out. But I'm always like, don't worry, for some reason, I'm always like, don't worry. It's gonna be okay.
Do they feel like good aliens or bad aliens?
I'm not sure. Like it's like I'm not I'm wondering that when they're all coming down. It's like they're doing flyovers like you were in Iraq or Afghanistan's, like when a bunch of F-18s go flying over, they're whizzing over and this and that, and it's like, okay, it's here. I've always known it was going to come
Yeah.
one day or whatever. So I haven't made contact with them yet, but
to your best conscious recollection.
yeah, that's true.
Well, I ask because I have this, well, I've been getting like downloads about what's going on for the collective, and one of them is that like everybody's psychic gifts are coming and sensitivities are coming online because there's more and more light consciousness just coming in. It feels like a dimmer switch is being raised, and so
Right.
all of us, whether
It's coming whether you want it or not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if you're not willing to try and surf it, then you're going to get crashed by the waves. It's just going to like knock you all around, right? Like if you want to like be like, no, this isn't happening and I'm not participating and I'm not like things have to stay the way they were or go back to the way they were, then you're just going to get crashed and knocked all around. But if you are willing to play with that energy and surf it, try and stay with it, then it's just it's a beautiful opportunity to see beyond the veil, see beyond the illusion and see the more of the truth.
For sure. There was that, I think it was on Godcast, and I had heard it before. There's a Hopi native elders prophecy. They're saying that the time is now. Yeah. And you got to jump in the river. And there's going to be a lot of people holding on to the banks and this and that. And it says, we don't know where the river's going, but it's time to jump in and go with it. So, and that really struck a chord with me when I heard that. I've heard it a couple times now. I think before I heard it on Todd's show, but yeah, it really resonated with me. And I was like, yeah, that's this happening with me. The podcasting thing, like I said, that was something I was like forced and felt compelled to do, was to talk to you. And then starting all this, and now like it's like it all makes sense. All these different people that I know are coming out of the one. Oh yeah, that person's into ghosts, and oh yeah, that person, like all these different people. Like I already have, they're all there already. They were there the whole time. They were there the whole time. Now I could start bringing them all out to the world, and then they're gonna talk to more people, and the network and the spider web is just gonna. Wow, it's already there. We're just gonna become more aware of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. But you had to go at 11, eh?
Yeah, yeah. I have a client call.
All right. Well, I don't want to hold you up. This was another wonderful chat. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on, and thank you for popping my podcast cherry. It's it's been a great thing ever since, and yeah, I think it's really saved my life, and a part of you're definitely on the part of my road to, like you said, the dial's being turned up. I can feel that really strong. So that's why I'm quitting drinking everything and stuff like that. Just to, I can really feel it even just having a few when you're golfing
Yeah.
and this and that. Like I feel not my highest vibration for days and days after,
Right.
even just having one or two. So yeah, it's time to stop all that for sure.
I'm glad to be on this journey with you.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, you have a wonderful afternoon. I hope you guys survive the storm. And give that baby a big squeeze and a kiss for me.
I will. Thank you so much, Brad.
All right.
Okay.
Talk to you later.